Hey there, all you queens and cryptids, and welcome to Queer and Loathing, the only podcast that utilizes enhanced interrogation techniques. I'm your host, Brett Bodie, and with me, as always, are my co-hosts.
It's funny that you talk about advanced interrogation techniques. Well, because our Guestmantha today is drinking, like, Ensure, and Ron DeSantis, when he worked at Gitmo as a JAG officer, he would oversee them force-feeding the prisoners Ensure. Anyway, I'm Mel.
I'm Samantha.
And our guest today
is Ron DeSantis.
Hello, I'm Zeto.
Zeto Ron
DeSantis.
Yeah, so Zeto is a friend of all of ours from like back in the day. She and I met doing community
Joseph and
children.
the Technicolor Dreamcoat, to be specific.
Yes. And we will remember all of those Technicolors of the coat till the day we die.
I won't do it, but I do remember the song that has like 60 separate colors, but I won't bore us all today.
No, but it's already playing in my head.
Same.
It'll be like,
not fair. Okay.
Well, it's going to be like, I won't like know the names of my children on my deathbed, but I'll be like, it was red and yellow and...
Yeah, it's not on purpose that we remember this.
I think it's only like the third best biblical play, like musical.
Oh yeah, I don't really care for it.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ Superstar.
That one I love.
That's the best one.
Okay, yeah.
And then Godspell is probably two.
Okay, I agree.
And there's maybe another one.
Okay.
So yeah, we're here to talk about Godspell.
Speaking of religion.
Oh, there you go.
See, I'm good at this.
Very good.
Wow.
You should have a podcast.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're talking about Carrie from 1976.
Yeah.
And I knew that.
There was no outside prompting.
Brian De Palma.
Yes, was the director, based
Yes.
on the Stephen King novel.
Which we have talked about many times on this podcast,
Yes.
including 2 episodes ago in our books app. Check it out. But this time, we're going to talk broadly about Carrie, but then mostly focus on the movie that people like, which is this one.
Yes.
It's not the other ones.
No, it certainly isn't. Although I haven't seen the made-for-TV remake. But
Can
apparently,
you imagine it's good?
Well, apparently it does feature Catherine Isabel, who played Ginger in Ginger Snaps, which was our most recent episode.
Is she Carrie?
No, I think she's one of the
Oh.
mean girls. She might be Chris. Bully girl? I don't know. I haven't seen it and I shan't.
And we're not going to look up who she played.
No, I won't.
Zito, why are you here?
I'm here because Brett asked me to be. And
Why?
to talk about Carrie.
Well, it came up, I think, because you were auditioning for Carrie the musical.
This is true. Yes,
I thought I was gracefully leading you towards that, but then it just seemed like I was bullying you, Chris style.
You were gracefully bullying me.
Eat
Yeah.
shit!
It's shit, you dumb guest bitch.
Yes, it is true. I was auditioning for the role of Margaret White in Carrie the musical, which does exist. Shocking. And so I had to watch the movie, which I didn't expect to love, but I fell in love with it really, really quickly. It's campy. It's devastating. Yeah, and I was really shocked by how emotionally invested I was with this character. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So was that the first time you watched the movie?
First time I watched the movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a kind of weird relationship with horror. It's something that I dabble in sometimes, but I'm a very sensitive, easily disturbed soul. So I haven't seen a lot of the movies that y'all talk about, and I probably wouldn't have watched it if not for the musical, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's...
Which could be a whole episode on its
Yeah.
own, like the flop that was Carrie the musical.
Yeah, famously closed after like 10 previews and 5 performances.
But they're still running it to this day of various
They're
types.
still doing regional performances of it, yeah.
Probably just because the name has so much cachet. So we've mentioned this before, but there's Stephen King's first book is Carrie. Then you have this Brian De Palma movie from the 70s. Then you have like a made-for-TV movie. There's also Carrie 2, which is cheesy. And then you have the 2000s remake of Carrie. And now we have Mike Flanagan making a Carrie TV show. So it's like one of those things where I think like most people know the name Carrie. Like it doesn't have probably the reach of like Halloween or The Exorcist, but it's up there in one of the most like name brand.
Yeah, and people probably have, or at least would probably be familiar with the image of Carrie at the prom covered in blood.
Totally.
So Zeto, so you said you're not a big horror person, but like, how would you define horror?
I thought a lot about this.
You knew it was coming.
I knew it was coming, and
She got tipped off.
Yeah, I was tipped off. Before preparing for this podcast, I probably would have said if it says horror like in the Wikipedia description, like that's my definition of horror.
I like that.
But I tried to get a little more creative.
That's the free thinkers definition.
So my working definition for me is when I'm watching a character or group of people in a situation that I wish I could save them from. Like right now. There's something...
This group of people.
Exactly. Plus horror elements. But there's something about horror in particular that makes me feel really disempowered in like a cute way, like a fun way.
Is it like you're looking cute or like feeling cute?
Both.
Yeah.
Plus, yes. So that's kind of my working definition, and I think it's interesting because I feel that same way watching like Michael Scott in The Office, like saying something that I do watching someone in like Get Out, and it's like don't go through that door or whatever it is. Like they invoke a similar experience, but one has the horror elements and the other one obviously.
Well, we've talked about extreme anxiety and cringe being horror adjacent on this podcast before. So like, cause for me, I'm maybe not like as desensitized as like Brett, but well, I mean, he can just watch stuff that like turns my tummy, but like I'm pretty much like a horror fan through and through. But I like can't watch Meet the Fockers.
Oh my God.
Or like Meet the Parents, right? Like I can't watch like that kind of thing. Or like, The Office with Michael Scott. I'm just like, you may want to go to like corporate HR.
Yeah, I am equally as likely to fast forward during an episode of The Office as I am during like a thriller or horror movie, because it invokes like that same just like I can't, like watching through my fingers feeling.
It seems like you're prepared.
Yes.
You're media trained. So you're ready for the next question, which is like, if you had, and it's okay if you don't have a lot, but then again, our last guest, our last not Mantha, Guestmantha, said she wasn't a horror person and then listed off like 70 horror films. But like, if you had to define, shout out to Brett's mom.
Big shoes to fill.
Yes,
I acknowledge
certainly.
that.
If you had to define your horror taste in like 3 to 4 movies.
Or more.
I made a list, a short list, and I think what's interesting is all of these movies feel to me like a different genre with horror elements, which I think is why I like them. So the first one I saw that kind of showed me I could enjoy horror is The Cabin in the Woods, which is funny. Death Proof.
Oh, I love Death Proof. I'm such a big fan of Death Proof.
And then I have 2 TV shows. So I have Buffy, huge fan, and then Sharp Objects.
Yeah.
Wow.
We talked a lot about Sharp Objects in our horr's novels episode.
I would say, are you just like trying to brown nose us? Or just like name all of our favorite things?
That's a real list.
It's like
if you can
don't
believe
have to see it, but
you have
really
Buffy,
like your list.
Tarantino. It's like when you have like a stalker and they like enter your life and they just like say they like all the same things as you.
Yeah, it's just like a single white female type of scenario.
Yes, I am love bombing all of you with horror movies.
I'll take it.
Yeah, but I think each of those, like Cabin in the Woods is basically a comedy to me. That's just subverting the horror genre. Death Proof feels like a thriller, but it's kind of horror-y. Sharp Objects is like obviously a drama with like thriller horror elements. So.
Yeah.
And Buffy and Cabin in the Woods are both Joss Whedon, so...
Scandal noted.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wah, wah.
Yeah. I love Sarah Michelle Gellar, so,
Yeah.
She's my Buffy.
So let's talk about Carrie.
Sure.
Let's.
Oh, yeah.
Let's dive right in. So I believe one of, not her first performance, but one of her early roles for Sissy Spacek as Carrie, who I think is so amazing in this movie, even though she is like a thin, beautiful woman, where in the novel Carrie's supposed to be like fat and like pimply and
The
like
frog among swans.
yes, exactly.
Literally.
Yeah, that's how they describe her.
Her mom as well is supposed to be sort of like, I don't know, not Piper Laurie.
Right. Yes.
Okay.
But I think through their acting and especially their body language, they convey those characters so well that I'm like, I see like Carrie as a target and like someone who's so uncomfortable in her own skin. So when you first see her in the volleyball game and she's just standing there like looking so like lost and afraid. Yeah, I just buy that she's an outcast reject.
She's also like weird looking.
Yeah.
She's like weird
Yes.
pretty. You know, she's
Totally.
like
She's beautiful,
Agreed.
but she's
a
definitely
beautiful alien.
not the
yeah,
beautiful
she
alien,
looks
I
like she
that.
looks a little alien. She got like that strawberry blonde hair that's like the same color as her skin and like the eyelashes. I'm sorry, if you look like that, like you just kind of you look like an alien to me.
Well, and I think
Couldn't be me. Pale with dark hair.
Well, I think it really shows like the effect makeup can have because when she's kind of made up for the prom and she's maybe darkened her eyebrows a little bit and
She was
Looking
gorgeous.
so beautiful.
I
Yeah.
know.
Well, I think it's more heartbreaking that she's conventionally beautiful by the end because it's like, oh, this could have gone such a different way if people
Yeah.
weren't so truly terrible
Yeah.
and if everything in her life hadn't just like amounted to this moment.
Yeah, like every force in her whole life just conspired to like basically make her a monster by the end.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like, I mean, I definitely knew, I didn't know Carrie, but, you know, the awkward girl who you can tell their parents are just weird, and you're like, I can't be the one to really help you, but I wish you the best, and I'm so
Yeah.
sorry. You're just like, I don't
You
know.
can't grow up, in my opinion, in America without encountering weird religious kid
Yeah.
who's just been like sheltered from the world and like they've somehow ended because we went to a school that was like at the time the kind of like the only like co-ed non-religious private school. Zeto was not there, but like even we had some of those kids
Yes.
at our school, which is weird because you know usually you'd think that those parents would send their kids to the religious affiliated schools or homeschool them or whatever. But like Carrie White as an archetype is definitely something that like she's not that weird, right? At least not
Yeah.
in the portrayal of this movie.
Mhm.
Like she's awkward, she's flighty, she's kind of scared
She's
of everybody.
sheltered
She's
and-
sheltered, but she's not like I don't know, man. Like
She's not like eating her hair.
you know,
Right.
I literally thought of the exact
Yeah.
same
It's
thing.
not eating bugs.
That's often a feature of that girl. The
Yeah.
Carrie you know in real life, she probably eats her hair.
Well, even the girl in the Breakfast Club, doesn't she eat her own hair?
It's
And she did
well,
like the
dandruff.
dandruff.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
But it's like, yeah, it's like usually they have like horse posters up,
Yeah.
or you know, like they're usually more like aggressively weird. But it's
Yeah.
like in the world of this movie, which it's like everybody has like lead poisoning that's making them horrifically mean.
Mhm.
Because I just think maybe the 70s was like this. I don't know. I wasn't alive.
I did have some thoughts about that. I'm
Me
like,
too.
there's teachers smacking kids
Right.
and like
I took note every time. What's her name? Miss Collins.
yeah.
Miss Collins slaps 3 different girls
Yeah.
in this movie. Some of them multiple times. She just slapping people.
And really like really whacking them.
She puts her whole hand into it.
And at one point, she's like, "I could get fired," or something like, "I could get fired for this. I don't care because you deserve it."
Right, because she's so mad at
Like,
Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, like, did Chris? Yeah, whatever. But
Yeah, also, yeah, Chris played by Nancy
Alan?
Allen, I believe.
oh,
Very
we did our
good.
homework.
Couldn't be me.
Yes. Who also appeared in RoboCop.
Oh,
Yeah.
you're right. Well, also, I mean, this is like a fun cast, right? Because
Well,
we
it's
have
very much a who's who of like, because there's PJ Souls pops up, who was in Halloween.
PJ Souls
Her baseball
in
cap.
this movie with that fucking hat was so distracting to me. Her gay little hat. She is wearing it. Well, because like, okay, so
on the hairdryer.
Yeah,
on
even
the-
on the hairdryer.
on the hairdryer, but like also like at prom.
Yes.
She is wearing this stupid gay little hat. And it's like, first of all, the movie's so funny to me because it's like, of course they need to age up the actors because it's just like within the first, 5 minutes, we're just seeing a bunch of bush, right? Like,
Yes.
a lot of nudity in this movie. So it's like, you can't have them looking like 14-year-olds, right? So everybody looks like they're like 25. But it's like, then you have some characters that they're just trying to like dress them down to look younger. And it's like, PJ Souls particularly has like the worst haircut.
Yeah.
She's wearing like, in the first scene she's in, she looks like she's dressed up like the Chucky doll. And then she has this stupid hat throughout the rest of the movie, and it's like pigtails, and it's like, okay, fucking whatever, PJ Souls.
You're getting way into gay and loathe, like, right off the bat.
Well, it's distracting, because, like, the movie itself, it's not, like, Zeto, you said it was camp, and it's not camp, right? Like, there is camp elements to it, but overall the movie is so sad and slow and sort of, like, takes its time and is, like, really tragic. And then you just have this one character that, to me, I was just like, every time she was in frame, I was just staring at her.
Well, even, when they have the punishment of the athletics, all the girls are wearing the same uniform, like the blue shorts, gray top, or something like that. She's the only one wearing red shorts.
Oh.
So it's like, no matter, they want her to pop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it works.
It did.
It worked for me. I was staring at her.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, I don't know the actress, but then there was the character Helen, who's also a mean, popular girl, but she looks 45.
Yes.
I'm like, this girl looks like a librarian from the 1950s.
And I think you're talking about is Edie McClurg, who I think ever since this movie has played, like, middle-aged, like, Midwestern.
That's what she looks like in this
moms.
movie.
Yeah.
Hilarious.
I was like, why is the teacher at detention with them? And it's like, oh no, that's another popular kid.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, in the world of this movie, it's like you have all the girls are like mean popular girls, and then there's Carrie. And it almost makes me wonder, because I was thinking this during the famous, prom scene. It's like, is this really what it's like? Or is this just like the way Carrie is seeing school? And like, is this like really how things were going down? Or is this just unreliable narrator?
I had the same thought as well, because the girls are like hyenas when they're laughing at her and like making fun of her. Like, they truly are like rabid people, like overtaken by something.
Especially that opening, like, locker room scene.
God. In contrast with the kind of dream-like, beautiful, romantic, like, locker room fantasy.
Yeah.
And then immediately it's broken by hyenas. Like a pack of girls, like, bullying Carrie.
Yeah.
I found that really interesting as well.
I also thought it was interesting how the character of Sue, played by Amy Irving, like, she is joining in with the mocking of Carrie, but like, Miss Collins is, like, kind of yelling at them all, and then she's, like, yelling especially at Sue, basically being like, I expected better from you.
Right.
And you see Sue's just, like, she kind of snaps out of it and is like, yeah, like, I sure did that, but, like, I wish I hadn't.
But Sue's also part of the pack, which is interesting, because
She
like
is.
her boyfriend Tommy is like friends with all the like sort of conspiring bad kids. Like, he's part of that group.
Yeah, they're in the
and
that
Sue
same
is
clique.
part of that group, and they respect Sue, right? Because Sue's tells Chris to like shut up at one point, and it's like, and she doesn't get bullied. So it is interesting where it's really just sort of like Carrie against the world. Even a like 10-year-old boy just biking by her.
Creepy Carrie, creepy Carrie.
It's like bullying her. It's like the whole town is against this poor girl.
Yes.
But for those of you who haven't seen this movie, like, I feel like you probably know about it, but it is worth a watch.
Absolutely.
My opinion, and everybody's opinion.
Oh yeah.
Oh my
Do
god.
we agree?
I love this movie.
Yeah, I don't always trust, like, when a movie's, like, iconic. Oftentimes I've gone into that and been like, I don't get it. This is one of those where I was like, oh, I get it immediately. Like, this is
It's
iconic.
not a super complicated story either.
Correct.
It's really just
That's one
like,
of its strengths, I think.
It's a simple story in that, okay, you have like a weird girl who's being bullied. She has magic powers.
That basically are awakened by her first period.
Yes, and although in the book I think she has them since she was a baby,
Yes.
but that's not really something that shows up in this. This movie simplifies it in a way that I think works totally well.
Yeah.
But yeah, she gets her period in the first scene she's in. She does not know what it is. Yeah. And then we'll talk about it. And then basically she has no support from anyone except, in my opinion, this teacher who's like a little too invested, a little inappropriate.
Yeah.
And then she gets bullied even harder, and she loses her mind and like kills everybody.
So should we talk about the opening?
We have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shower scene. So I love that it's this slow motion, like shot with the beautiful score, and it's just like steam and like these naked women, but it's almost like Greek statues. Like they're just like, it's like, oh, their bodies, and they're all having a good time and joking. And it pans over, and like Carrie is at first kind of eclipsed by the steam. She's the only one still showering. And it zooms in on her, and she seems like she's kind of like sexually enjoying her body in the shower, which I think is so true to life, because it's like she doesn't even know what these feelings are. She just knows that like this feels good, but no one has ever talked to her about sex. Like, you think Margaret's talking to her about masturbation?
No, or even having a body and like what that means.
There's
Yes.
chapters and chapters about that in her book called The Sins of Women.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
Did you not
okay,
see
got
that?
it, got
It's
it.
the
Yes,
book
yes,
she
I
has.
remember.
I
She
wrote that
hits
book.
Carrie.
Wow.
She smacks Carrie with that book.
You co-wrote it with Ann Coulter.
And Ron DeSantis.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's having this like very sort of like steamy, sort of like sexy shower, and then she drops the soap, and then it's like as she looks down, she sees that she is bleeding, and then she does what, honestly, okay, this is me kind of confessing here. If some girl, cool or not, at my high school had walked up to me while I was wearing a white shirt and rubbed her period blood hands all over my shirt, I cannot say I would be above screaming, plug it up, and throwing a tampon at her.
Oh, yeah.
At least pushing her out of the way.
I would be upset by somebody
I would
coming
flip
at me
my
with
shit.
period blood hands.
She
And no matter what I was wearing,
rubs
I would be upset
her
by that.
bloody hands
Yeah.
on, and I get
yes.
it.
Several
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
Yes. And none of them seem bothered by that, which is interesting to me. But like,
I thought they were kind of grossed out, but
yeah,
not.
but then they were just sort of like, as Zeto said, it's like they just turn into these like hyenas, because I do think we're kind of like in Carrie's world here.
Mm-hmm.
But
And they're throwing the like, what were they, pads? I don't know.
yeah,
what-
they're throwing pads and
Tampons.
tampons at
Yeah.
her, screaming, plug it up, plug it up. But it's so weird to me, because like even if that had happened, I can't imagine, like Chris to me is insane in this movie, because it's like she hates Carrie so much, and it is never explained why. It's like she just is mad at Carrie. I don't know, like, because that's the only like inciting incident we see. Well, actually, before that, when they're at PE, Carrie like is bad at sports,
Yeah.
and she's like, "Fuck you, Carrie, eat shit," and it's
Yeah.
like,
What'd she do? Yeah.
it's like I thought maybe in the 70s it was different, but I just feel like the popular girls when I was in high school just were like, I don't care about PE. Like, oh, she made you lose field hockey.
Yeah,
like,
well, I
who
felt like
gives
the
a shit?
inciting incident was basically like that Chris feels that Carrie, it's Carrie's fault that she's in detention.
And can't go to prom.
And then when she
Well, yeah, but
rebels
it's like
against that, can't go to
nonsensical because
prom.
it's not even like Carrie
Well,
like
yeah.
narked or like
Yeah.
or like was demanding that they face punishment. Carrie's
Well, Chris
like
isn't really a picture of like
sanity.
sanity
Yeah.
or
She
or
sure
good
is not.
moral will. Like she's.
It's like be mad at the teacher. Pour blood on the teacher who's like has it out for you.
Well, she can't do shit to the teacher. She could do shit to Carrie and
I
get away
guess-
with it.
I
That's
guess that's
exactly it.
true.
It's the
Until a
hierarchy.
certain point.
So I
the
guess
teacher
that's
can
it.
slap her across the
Yep.
face.
Sure can.
I say I can't say that I was the nicest person in high school, but I don't think I wasn't 70s bully.
Yeah.
But it's like
You weren't
I guess
a Stephen King bully.
I certainly wasn't a psychotic Stephen King bully. But like, yeah, I guess that's the logic of like who can you get away with being mean to?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And literally, like every single person in the town, including Carrie's mother, have agreed this is the person to beat up on.
Yeah.
So
She's
maybe
like the
that's it.
sacrificial lamb, basically, of just like any negative feelings I have about myself, maybe I can just turn them towards Carrie because she's weird, and what's she gonna do?
She won't do anything.
And her mom won't stand up for her either.
Right.
You just imagine like there won't be any repercussions.
But then again, Carrie does kind of stand up for herself. Like when she goes to the principal's office and he keeps calling her like Cassie or
Cassie.
whatever.
Cassie.
Like she corrects him. So she does have, I guess it's like maybe the period is unleashing in her.
She's irritable now.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's what it is.
Oh, are you PMSing?
Well, and also, I think I've mentioned this before, but in like, and not that I'm saying this is real, but just in like occult like learning,
Yeah.
it's very common to have like either telekinesis or like poltergeist activity centering around a girl like going through puberty. Like that's often like the onset of it. There was like the Enfield poltergeist, which was the subject of The Conjuring 2.
There's also a good, I cannot remember the name of the show, but if you Google it, you'll find it. There's a good British TV show on like Amazon Prime that's about that haunting, and it's much better than Conjuring 2.
I believe it. But yeah, so that's like actually very kind of common in just like,
That's when my telekinesis started.
yeah.
Yeah.
You've hit it well.
What have you used it for?
Moving the remote control car without the remote
Oh yeah.
at my home. And that's it.
Well, that was you, wasn't it?
Turning on the air conditioner and letting it squeak.
Oh yeah. Well, you're doing good work then. No
You're
notes.
welcome.
Yeah. So then in the shower scene, then Miss Collins comes because she hears the hyenas. She's like, "What is going on?" And
She has like a prison guard window into the locker room.
she does.
Just staring in.
But so she goes to figure out what's going on. She like gets them to stop throwing things. She basically like sends them all away. It's like, you guys all need to like fuck
First,
off.
she slaps Carrie.
Yes.
And is like, get a
calm her
hold of
down.
yourself.
Snap out of it.
But it did work. So in Miss Collins' defense,
I think that was like, I mean, I don't like that she slapped anyone, but that one I'm like, I kind of get it. When someone is,
right? When it was,
to use the word hysterical, but like,
No,
you,
but
you
she-
gotta get her out of it.
that's the thing. It was like, and even if that wasn't the right move to take, I felt that she did it for Carrie's benefit.
Yes.
Right.
Agreed.
Although
I
maybe
feel
next
like-
time put her under the cold water to get her out
Oh,
of it.
maybe.
But, you know.
I feel like every teacher should get to slap one teenage student
Okay,
per
teenage.
year.
Okay, so
Oh,
you just
per
think she
year.
like exceeded her limit.
She went too
Oh.
far.
Okay.
Yes.
You only get one.
Right.
Should have saved it for Chris.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Carrie, you could have put her back under the water. You could have
Or just given her time.
Maybe you can it was out of her control. She had to slap Carrie in that moment, so that one didn't count.
I think it
Oh, You're giving her a
counts.
pass.
Oh, okay. I guess okay. Maybe. I
I
still
don't
want her
know.
to save it up for Chris, but like I get that she needed to do it to Carrie.
I'll continue to consider this. I'll give you guys my verdict later on. But yeah, so, and Carrie also gets some blood on Miss Collins' shorts, which leads to a great moment in the principal's office where he can't stop staring at the period blood on her shorts. And he's obviously so uncomfortable with just like the subject of menstruation and is so horrified that he's like being confronted with like period blood at all. And he's like, she
So
just needs to go home. Like, get Cassie out of here.
Well, it's so
Get
funny.
that bloody bitch out of my office.
But it's like so funny how like we as a society and just like other societies, like we find period blood just like extra gross.
Mhm.
Right? And it's funny because we didn't intend to do this, but we just did Ginger Snaps. It's like 2 period movies in a row. And you know, they're different movies and they're both approaching the blood in different ways. But there is that sort of similarity of like, oh, it's like you're unleashing and they're different in the sense that Ginger Snaps just feels really like it's directed by a woman. It's like very feminine coded. And this is just like a bitches be crazy type of movie. Written by a man, directed by a man. I looked up the cinematographer because so much of it is like very, in my opinion, like incredibly done.
Mhm.
But it is like, again, we have like the male gaze, right? It's some
Oh yeah, well that whole
freaking
shower-
Italian named Mario.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, and like the shower scene, and just like a lot of the time, it just like feels like this movie is just, even though it is like so female dominated, it is very, in my opinion, like masculine in the way that it looks at like periods. And I just thought that was really interesting because it's like, I don't know, like I got my period for the first time at school. I didn't really know what it was because honestly, it doesn't usually look and feel like how you would imagine it would look and feel. I didn't rub it on nobody. But like there is something that's
Why not? Like that was your chance. You missed your window.
That was it.
I don't know. It is something that's like very like I feel like most people who menstruate, right? it's like you go through this. But both of these movies, it's someone who got their period really late, which I think is interesting because Carrie is coded as like a senior.
I think she's 17.
Yeah.
Which is pretty late.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, it's remarkably late.
Well, that's why the principal is really surprised.
Well,
Yeah, he's like, no one told this girl, and
Yeah.
like, this never happened to her.
Yeah,
Like,
but it makes
you
me
don't
wonder,
have health
like,
class, apparently.
what's physically happening to her at home to make her period come this late?
Yeah.
Like, is she being fed?
Well,
Like,
she
is it
doesn't
the-
look like it.
Yeah.
Not to body
Right.
shame, but
Yeah.
she is remarkably lithe.
Yes.
Which is often, and she's not very, I don't know, she's not very, like, athletic,
Right.
She's
Well,
probably just not in great health, period.
Yeah.
I would imagine so, yeah.
well
'cause it's,
malnourished.
it's the prayer closet, but it's also the diet closet
Yeah.
Yeah.
at home.
So yeah, it all is kind of interesting.
And you start, the first glimmer of her telekinesis is in the shower scene, when she's really upset and, like, she breaks a light. And then the second instance is in the principal's
The
office.
cigarette.
Because she can't, like, meet the principal's eye, because I guess she's just so embarrassed. So she's just staring down at the ashtray, and it's, like, trembling, because she's so uncomfortable. And then he finally calls her Cassie one time too many.
Yeah. Crash.
Yeah, and she just, like, smashes it and leaves with her mind.
Like,
and
she
then
just
it's...
can't get respect anywhere.
Right, because then it's a free-for-all, because then the very next scene is her walk home, and she makes that bully kid eat shit on his bike. He just looks at her like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? How'd you do that? Yeah, I just love that.
And then she goes home, and like, I really do like that Carrie at this point is trying to stand up for herself. She is like,
Yeah.
she is demanding her mother tell her, like, why didn't you tell me about this? Like, you should have told me about this. And
that
all her
scene.
mom can think
So
to do
sad.
is hit her and then, like, preach at her about how she's sinful. And
Yeah,
it's
it's like you making her repeat after me, like, and Eve was weak.
Yeah.
Say it.
and it's like, she just got period blood everywhere. She's not doing nothing.
Right, well, that's what, and it is nice, because I do think that's probably a character shift for her, is that she is like, this is a bridge too far even for me. Mom, like, as if I don't have a hard enough time at school already,
Right.
this could have been avoided, like, if you told me and you didn't.
Well, this is also after we see the first act of kindness from Miss Collins. Slap aside, that she starts to be tender with her and tell her, like, it's okay, you're okay. And I think this emboldens her a little bit to her mother when she goes
Yeah.
home. It's a little like, hey, fuck you, maybe? I don't know.
It's a betrayal.
You're right.
It's like, here's a normal, expected thing that happens that half the world gets, and you should have told me, and you didn't.
Right.
You could have prepared me. This could have been avoided.
Yeah, I'm having a hard enough time without
Right.
this.
Exactly.
Yeah, this bomb.
But that's not where we're introduced to Margaret, because first we see Margaret
Yeah.
shows up
Right.
at Sue's house, right, to talk to Sue's mom, who's just, like, day drinking and watching TV. It is so annoying to see Margaret there, because obviously Margaret's just, like, a town nuisance. And so obviously, like, Sue's mom is just like, fine, I'll, like, put up with her for, like, 5 minutes. Like, she can come in and, like, say her thing, and then I'll get rid of her as soon as possible. But I just thought that was so funny. And eventually, Sue's mom is like, I'd like to make a contribution, just to, like $5. And then Margaret
10.
gives her a look. She's like, I mean $10. Margaret takes the money and puts it away and says, I hope you find a Jesus.
Well, I think that's actually a really important part because we see that Margaret fully buys into and believes what she's preaching. Like, she's not happy with the donation. She would only be happy with, like, I give my soul over to Jesus Christ.
You're right.
Yeah.
That's what she's actually wanting.
Yeah, and I think it's an important part is that we see that, yes, she's completely delusional in her belief and the way she, like, goes about it, but, like, this is so true for her, which makes her even creepier in my
$10 is a lot of money in the 70s.
Right?
You
This
can
is true.
rent a tuxedo for $10. That's what they
I
say.
know. I thought
I was like, that's like $200 now.
I know my ears pricked up because I'm like, I've rented tuxedos and it's not $10.
To be fair, they were hideous in this movie. Those $10 tuxedos.
You didn't like the ruffles? There's a whole ruffle discussion.
It's not. Yeah.
The famous ruffle scene.
A lot of ruffles. But yeah. But it is interesting because it's like we only see Carrie be a pushover in one scene, which is the very beginning at actual PE, and then from then on, she starts standing up for herself, at least in some way.
That's
and
true.
It gets more and more emboldened. She's never Ginger,
No.
But she's never ginger. But we, as like a society, can infer all of the past leading up to this snapshot. Like we can fill in the blanks of like, why do these girls gang up on her? Why is the little kid calling her creepy Carrie? You know, going by like we can kind of like that's filmmaking.
That is
baby.
such a good point. That is such a good point. They introduce it so well that we need 5 to 7 minutes of it, and then we're good.
Like,
You're
we
right.
know this story,
Yeah.
right? Like, we don't know the story of where it goes, but it's like we as a society can know, oh, that's bullied kid. She's different. She's weird. We can fill in the rest that, like, we don't need to see. And then it's like, oh, we see her mom. We see her mom being abusive, religious psycho.
Yeah, she locks her in that closet with the Jesus with the glowing eyes.
Dude, okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
Okay. Zeto, did you grow up with religion?
Yeah.
Christian?
Christian.
What flavor?
Kind of a little Methodist, a little Episcopalian, a little like
No glowing Jesus eyes.
no glowing.
So
Jesus.
Brett, you grew up Catholic.
Mhm.
You grew up something too Christian.
Episcopalian.
So you're all Christians. What is the deal with this fucking Jesus?
Well,
Why is it like that?
I think
Great
it's Saint
question.
Sebastian.
Oh, is it?
I thought it was Jesus too, but I looked it up, and Saint Sebastian died
With arrows?
With arrows.
Because that was gonna be my
That
question.
does make more sense because he's not in the
Yeah,
crucifixion
typical.
pose because it's lopsided.
I was like, are they worshipping like Boromir? Like, there's so many arrows in this Jesus.
That's in my prayer closet.
So confused.
That's so funny.
Okay,
yeah.
that makes sense.
Saint. I didn't.
Not
look
that I
up-
know who that is.
Right, me neither. And I didn't retain a lot, but he was persecuted for his faith, and that's how he died.
That makes so
Oh
much
my
sense
God.
that Margaret would really like.
Exactly. But oh yeah, okay.
You've earned your spot on this episode.
So Margaret dies in the same position, but Carrie's the one who's persecuted for Margaret's faith. It's not actually her.
You're right.
Like she's fine. That pissed me
Well,
off.
she's not fine, but
Sure.
yes.
But
Point taken.
she's being hurt by her own actions, whereas Carrie is the being punished for Margaret's actions.
You're right.
And everyone else.
She's being persecuted for Margaret's faith.
Yes, correct.
So I'm the dumbass. Well, it sounds like most of us are who probably could have used instead of maybe Brett's favorite scene from this, which is the long tuxedo rental scene. Maybe cut that down and have a scene.
What's my loathe gonna be?
I saw your letterbox review. Cut that down a little bit and then give us during her diatribe about women being sinful. Maybe put in there, you need to go into the Saint Sebastian closet.
Yeah.
He died for being a believer. You should be so lucky, bitch. And then throw her in the closet. Just so I'm like not staring at this like glowing eye thing and being like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, that's fair. In real life, I don't think Saint Sebastian had glowing eyes.
Were you there?
I wasn't. Can't say I was.
Oh.
I know.
Well, you've now lost your space on the pod.
Damn it. I was so
But
close.
you've earned the opportunity
To go to the Sebastian closet and do your little ad read.
Yeah.
What? Oh, it's time?
It is time.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to fuck this up.
I would never.
Can I do it in like a 50s soap commercial voice? Okay.
No.
This episode is brought to you by Spackle. Tired of those ugly Start over. fix it in post.
We'll fix it
Okay.
in post.
This episode is brought to you by Spackle. Tired of those ugly dents where you keep biting your wall? Spackle will fill your holes so good you'll say, Spackle, I hardly know her. So head on down to your local Spackle store and get yourself a cup. Spackle, because why hole when could be no hole? Thank you.
I think that's the most times I've heard the word spackle in my entire life combined.
That was
Yes.
my goal.
And
That was the attempt.
Why hole there could be no. Sorry.
No, I'm pro hole, but
Oh.
We'll hole you after the spackle. Bye. Welcome back, everyone. Hope you enjoyed spending your break working up a nice spackle. And now, back to Carrie. Feel free to jump in at any time.
I just wanted to say Spackle.
So basically, the movie at this point it's interesting because to me this movie does not drag, but interestingly, we're not really getting any like horror type violence.
That's true.
Until like over 30 minutes in. Like the first thing we get, besides, okay, Carrie's bleeding from her vagina and rubbing it on people. It's horrific, fine. But not, not horror,
Yeah.
right? Until we have, so Chris is now on the warpath. She fucking hates Carrie. She wants to, like, destroy Carrie's life.
Right, because they all get detention for what they did to Carrie, but Chris continues to have a shit fit, even though she has been told that if you don't do this detention, your prom tickets will not be accepted.
Yeah, we are, like, presumably at the end of their senior year.
Yes.
Where prom is coming up. Everyone already has prom dates, except, of course, Carrie. It seems like in this universe, you only go to prom if you have a date.
Mm.
Which was crazy.
I think that is how it was, though.
Yeah, and
like,
so...
you have to get your prom tickets. They're sold in pairs.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'm guessing you can't buy a pair with, like, a girlfriend, and you can't just go as two gals.
No.
Two
Okay.
roommates, just hanging out together. Sorry, every time the AC turns on, it sounds like a stock door opening effect,
Yeah.
like the one
It
that we
does.
hate. But yeah, so, like, at this point, like, our plot is that, like, Carrie has no idea that the movie is now surrounding her.
That's true.
And-
All of these other forces are conspiring whether to do her a solid or do her a horrible, horrible thing.
She's on her own quest.
Yeah.
She's going to the library. She's looking up telekinesis. She's
on
trying
her own little self-discovery journey, which doesn't get a lot of screen time, but I love that she has that.
Yeah, that's what she's
Learning
doing.
about herself.
At some point, Sue has, like, again, weird teenager logic, but we have to remember they're teenagers and they're filled with leaded gasoline that is aerosolized in the air around them. They're not thinking clearly, but Sue is like, I feel bad for being mean to Carrie, so I'm gonna have my boyfriend Tommy, who Carrie has sort of shown that she has a crush on him, vaguely, because she liked his nice poem.
Yeah, she said his poem was beautiful, and the teacher was like, oh yeah, was it beautiful, Carrie?
Oh my god.
And you know what? It was beautiful, and it's like, even the teacher... Again, this is why I
the
wonder...
teacher is so complicit. Like, obviously,
Yes.
he is bullying Carrie,
Mm-hmm.
because he knows that, like, the other kids will like that,
Yeah,
basically.
and, like, again, it kind of makes me wonder if this is, like, heightened Carrie way of visioning the world, but who knows?
don't know.
I've seen teachers flip out on students. Like
Right,
that,
I was like,
so-
I actually believe that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so Sue's like, well, my boyfriend Tommy is gonna ask Carrie to prom, so she's gonna give up her prom so Carrie can go with Tommy. Carrie is, of course, like, this is sus. I'm
Yes.
not into this.
She says no and, like, runs away the first time when Tommy approaches her in the
which
library.
is, like, honestly a smart thing to do.
Yeah.
I agree.
A man approaches you, and then like Miss Collins. This scene I really like, where Miss Collins is, like, talking to Carrie, and she's like, oh, that's so good. It's probably because you're a lovely person. You're so pretty. Like, at no point is she like, yeah, no, this is all because everybody hates you. She's like, yes, like, totally, this could be real because you're special. And then she clearly doesn't believe a word she's saying, because she marches over to Sue and Tommy and starts interrogating them, slapping Sue around, again, with the slapping.
Her pimp hand is strong. I tell you what, Miss Collins.
She's ready.
Yeah, she's ready.
She subscribes to the Sean Connery school of hitting women, which is you must use it with an open palm.
Oh,
If
yes.
you're gonna hit a woman, use an open palm.
Mhm.
And so, like, I do kind of like that piece where it's like, again, Miss Collins, you're a little too involved here, but clearly she's, like, trying to intervene
Well,
where
like, she
no
knows-
one is standing up for this girl.
That's exactly it. She knows Carrie needs somebody, and it's like, and who else is there?
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, no one, like, because I was thinking just over the break how, like, Carrie has no outlet for any of her emotions and never has.
Mhm.
Right.
Not just anger, but even, like, love. Like, she's just had no one to share any of her feelings with.
Mhm.
And I think Miss Collins can sense that, and that's part of why she's like, yeah, this is sus, but, like, I'm going to take this opportunity to build her up. Because, like, when
Yeah.
else is she going to get
Yeah.
built up?
Yeah, and I can kind of relate, although my home life was not as bad. But just, like, even having your home is, like, a place where you don't feel comfortable being yourself can be really hard. And so Carrie then kind of, like, over the course of the next 10 to 20 minutes or whatever, she gets convinced to go with Tommy, and then one of my favorite scenes in this movie is we have like a jump scare. Oh my gosh, John Travolta is here.
Yes.
Fresh off of Devil's Reign, a movie
Yes.
Brett and I have seen. His first role. So this is his second film role. And he is so funny in this movie. And
He actually is.
And him and Chris together are such like toxic couple, like
I have that note.
goals.
Yeah, I was like,
Oh my
they deserve each other.
100%.
Like they work.
And like, because if like, there's the concept of mutual abuse, and it's not common, but I'm like, I think this is an example.
Yes.
Like they both just like kind of hate each other.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the funniest part is when she's trying to convince Tommy.
She's like going down on him.
There's like her ventriloquist act,
Yeah.
where she's never stopped speaking, even though she's maybe supposed to be
aren't you
sucking him
busy?
off. What it's so funny because she's like
I have it.
sucking
I
his dick,
wrote
and she
it
says,
down.
"She's Billy, I hate Carrie White."
No.
There's a pause, and he goes, "Who?"
It's oh Billy, and then there's groaning, and then she says, "I hate Carrie White," and then he says, "Who?" Like he has no clue, but it's like this whole like
It's so funny.
sexy scene where it works up to it, and it's like clearly the whole time she is thinking of like manipulating him,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just here, but then he's all in, so like he is not spared, obviously. And then they hatch this insane plan
Yes.
to go slaughter a pig, drain its blood, it is insane. Rig the prom so Carrie wins prom queen, so she is on stage, so they can balance a bucket of blood above her head, and then 15 minutes after she's been standing up there, then they pull it and she'll get covered in blood. And then everybody
Yeah.
will laugh.
When I at least see the connection with the blood, because it's like the period and like mocking her for that. That's the only thing that's the only dot I can connect.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I get the blood aspect. And also, Chris is obviously like an actual psychopath because she's like
Yeah.
getting off as John Travolta is like slaughtering that pig.
Well, and then later when she's about to pull, because she wants to pull the thing, she's like licking her lips.
Yeah, no,
and, like,
she like
she's
gets
into
off
it.
on it.
Whereas he's just sort of, I think, like a chaos goblin.
Yeah. The pig scene is actually one of the most disturbing to me because it just seeing people so comfortable with just slaughter in that way.
I agree.
Yeah.
It won't just like he's kind of chasing around as like, oh, you.
Yeah, you're the one
Yeah.
or something like.
And then it's not even like a real like execution or how you would actually slaughter an animal. He's just hacking at it with
Yeah.
an axe.
Ugh.
It's not.
As Chris is like,
It's
ooh,
not-
yeah.
It's
Kill
not
that pig.
It's not how we do kosher butchery, to say the least. But yeah, no, but that's our first like kill
Yes.
in the movie, and it's like quite a way into the movie, which is interesting. Because like there are a lot of deaths in this movie. Spoiler alert, but
Yeah.
they were all kind of within the last 20 minutes or so. And then yeah, we have, to me, the most disturbing scene is when they're getting ready for prom, and Carrie's just raw dogging all the lipstick at the store.
Oh
I
yeah.
think also the lady working there, it was
Is disturbed because you just see Carrie like applying her makeup and the woman in the background who just is staring at her in horror.
Well, probably because of the color she chose. That bright orange.
Not a good look.
Not a good look, Carrie.
like, did you buy all
Cassie.
these you tried?
Cassie.
Cassie.
It's just grossed me out.
It's
As a
gross.
kind of germaphobe, it's like
Yeah.
could not conceive of the idea of
Well-
just taking the like going to like Ulta and just like grabbing the lipstick and putting it directly on my lips.
But she doesn't know because
Yeah, if
no one's ever
she-
taught her about makeup
Yeah.
or
yeah, she doesn't know.
yeah.
I mean
I
that's
assume they
her
were
in this
fresh
movie.
and got thrown out.
Well, probably not.
That's your headcanon
Yes.
for this movie.
I would bet, I've never worked at like a Sephora or Ulta or anywhere like that, but I would bet there are people that go in and do that shit.
There are.
Oh,
'Cause people are
absolutely.
so gross. and
People don't
weird.
wash their hands. People be out here nasty.
People really be out here
Yeah,
nasty.
nasty.
Can we talk about the dinner scene with where Carrie and Margaret like they're having their candlelit
Yeah.
dinner
With their
in front-
tapestry.
with the giant Last Supper tapestry behind them, and Carrie breaks the news that she's been invited to prom and she said yes.
Mm-hmm.
She's going.
And Margaret is furious. She throws her drink in Carrie's face, which also extinguishes the candles on the table, which
That's
I
pretty
loved.
cool.
Pretty
Yeah.
cool.
But Carrie just like holds firm and is like, no, I am going. And then Margaret's like going to shut the window, and Carrie, with her telekinesis, shuts all the windows. And that's when Margaret's like, you're a witch, and like this power is from Satan. She's like, no, Mama, it's me.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I took note here where I said, if your kid's talking to you and you throw your drink in their face and they just keep talking, you have fucked up as a parent. That's your sign.
Yeah, because it doesn't
Carrie
even...
she's not even phased.
You're right.
Like, she's constantly dealing with this shit. Like, because as much as, like, Carrie is becoming something, right? And she's changing, you can tell her mom has just fucking been like this.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The whole time that Carrie's been a kid, she's getting locked in the Sebastian closet. She's getting hit with books. She's getting drinks thrown in her face. She's getting manhandled by her mom. Like, this is her world that she lives in.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even flinch, really.
No, but she's seen a different world now, because she says, everyone isn't bad, Mama. Everything isn't a sin.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my favorite quotes from this, which is very related to ginger snaps, Margaret says, because now that she's had her period, she says, after the blood come the boys, like sniffing dogs, grinning and slobbering and trying to find out where that smell comes from.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I find that very upsetting.
Comforting?
That
Oh.
scene is, like, that's the horror to me before the end. It's the psychological horror of all the Carrie Margaret scenes.
Yeah.
And this time, I've watched it a few times, and this time watching it, I was just really struck by how much she was saying, they're all going to laugh at you, they're all going to make fun of you. And I was like, she's been saying this to Carrie her entire life. She's kept Carrie isolated, and then saying, when you're out in public, when you're with other people, they don't like you. They're all making fun of you. They don't give a shit about you. And you're awful. They're right, but also they're wrong, but they're right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I was just like, oh, there's so much projection. I was like, what happened to you, bitch?
Well, funny you say that. Because, like, okay, so I've mentioned this a few times on the pod before, but I tried, the first time I read this book, actually the only time I read this book was when I was in 3rd grade. And it was beyond me. But, like, what I remember very clearly was the mom.
Yep.
And the things she would say to Carrie, because that's a lot of that book.
Mm-hmm.
And so the mom's background is that she had sex once before marriage, then got married, and then he maritally, I'll use the TikTok language, raped her. And then he dies. It's sometimes, I think in the book,
He either, like, runs away and then dies, or just
or
dies.
he dies immediately,
Yeah.
whatever.
Runs away.
I can't.
But he's out of the picture. What did
He's
you
out
say?
of the picture.
He said he dies and then runs away. So, yeah, sorry.
I'm dumb.
This is a Stephen King book. Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. But, like, so her history with sex is, like, already traumatic for her, but she was already a religious freak when that all happened to her. So, like,
And so she sees Carrie as, like, basically God's punishment. Like, Carrie is her cross to bear
yeah, and
for enjoying sex that time, like, before marriage.
right, exactly. And then she sees, like, so Carrie almost, like, magically, right, or just malnourishedly has been, like, stunted in her womanhood, but also just, like, it's, like, almost like her mom is trying to preserve her as a child.
Yes.
And there's, like, not really much you can do to stop it. I don't think Margaret White was going to put Carrie on puberty blockers. She doesn't strike me like the type.
She just didn't think of it.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if Carrie's ever been to the doctor.
Oh, that's real.
I think that's totally true.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like, it's just very striking to me, this relationship that they have together, because it is something that I think, like, a lot of people can relate to, at least in the sense of having a parent that is sort of vicariously projecting their sins onto their kid. Because Carrie, until the very end, the famous scene, she does nothing wrong.
Truly.
And throughout the movie, it's like, Carrie eats shit. Fuck you, Carrie. Carrie White is a bitch. Like, this is just, like, how people are treating her. And we never see her do anything that is, like, remotely bad until she ginger snaps.
Yeah, she does really go off at one point.
But let's talk about prom.
Yeah, I think we're ready. So this scene breaks my heart. I think I, like, kind of was crying on this last rewatch. Like, just seeing her happy at prom is, like, the worst twist of a knife for me.
Just feeling beautiful, actually having a good time, getting along with her date.
Yeah, Tommy's being...
He's having a good time too.
Yeah, being nice
They're
and being a
kissing,
gentleman.
which is weird.
It is weird.
But again,
And
70s.
Sue sees it, and she's just like, oh.
Well,
She seems unbothered.
That's what you do with your prom
Yeah.
date, I guess.
She must be a secure attachment or
I
something.
think so.
I mean, she seems...
Can't relate.
I say, she seems pretty secure.
Yeah, she does. But
Yeah, but also all the other people who...
yeah, because there's that
were-
girl who's now like, oh, you can sit with us, and like, it's like, where'd you get your dress? Oh my god, you made it? And she doesn't seem to be
No, they're not
making fun of her. She's truly just like being nice to someone in your prom group who you don't really know, but
Yeah.
they're
And
gonna
I-
sit with you.
And I do think, as much as like so much of this movie feels heightened and like surreal, I do think sometimes popularity is that tenuous and bullshit. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, you're at prom with the cool guy. You're now in the in circle.
Well, I think that's true because like you show up looking beautiful with the cool prom date, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's just like, oh, maybe she's not that creepy. She's actually seems very normal.
Yeah, well, and it's like
Right
more
now.
effort to now make fun of her because she's next to someone who is giving her power in a way.
That's true.
And so it just changes the dynamic.
Well, I'm wondering if that's kind of what Sue was wanting for her
Maybe.
by having Tommy take her to prom. It was partially just like to help improve her general social standing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sometimes it's just like the one person with like cachet in the school standing up for someone who has none.
Right.
And it's like they can impart some of that onto them.
Yeah, and so I think that's exactly what happens.
And she wanted to see it. She went. And she was happy to see Carrie and her boyfriend, Carrie and Tommy, have a good time. Like,
She snuck in just to like see her like plan work out.
Yeah.
Right, just to see Carrie like having a good time.
Can I tell y'all my most heartbreaking moment of the movie?
Please.
It's when they're in the car and about to get out, and she goes to reach for the door handle, and then she stops herself because she's going to let Tommy open the door for her.
I know. I don't think I'd picked up on that moment before.
It's just the first time you see her like, no, I'm gonna like fully enjoy this moment, and like I'm the girl going to prom, and I'm gonna like let myself fully be in this moment.
And she's showing her corsage to her bitch mom who's
Ugh.
never going to give her the response she wants. Right? It's like she always wants to give her mother the opportunity to be good and like be a good mom.
You're so right.
And her mom is just going to fail her every single time. But like up until the end, she's like wants her mother to just be her mother to her instead of this antagonist, right? And so it's like it's so sad that she's so hopeful, right?
Which is
Yep.
wild because of what we've seen her go through and what we know she goes through.
Yeah.
The fact that that hope still exists, and as strong as she is, it's kind of unimaginable in a way.
Maybe she can go to the prom, have a good time, go home, and be like, see, Mom, you were wrong.
But that's what makes this movie, to me, so heartbreaking, is it feels like a Greek tragedy in that, like, it's always going to end this way. Even the acts of kindness are what put the end into motion. Like, it can't end in any other way, even though you're watching it, like, begging that this time the blood won't drop.
That is how I feel watching this movie, maybe more than any other.
Yeah.
Like that long spinning shot of them dancing, and it goes on for so long, and I love that it does. It just feels like
That's
I
the
don't know,
only
it's
thing in the
suspended-
world.
Yeah, it's the only thing in the world.
I got a little nauseated. They're spinning so fast.
It was spinning pretty fast. I was kind
And
of
it
like,
speeds up in a way that makes you feel dizzy, and to me it kind of mirrors how Carrie must
Yes.
be feeling, of just like, whoa, is this my life, this beautiful man, and like
I really do think the
Yes.
cinematography in this is like masterclass.
I agree.
I was like, you can always tell it's a Brian De Palma movie because there's a million split diopter shots where there's one person in the foreground and one person in the background, and they're both in focus.
Well, one of my favorites of that is when Tommy, when the poem is being read.
Yeah, where it's
and
Tommy in the
Carrie,
front and
you see her behind, and they're both like. I think that's.
I liked that one too.
I was like, ooh, that's really good.
Oh yeah, it's so good. De Palma's a master, and I think there's lots of moments, but especially the prom scene, and like the music really helps because it, especially at the prom scene, because it goes from this beautiful, dreamy, like, oh, I'm having my Cinderella moment, right into the ominous music when it like shows Chris, like, and where she and Billy are hiding under the stage. And there's that tracking shot of like, oh, they've got the string and we're following the string and it goes up and oh, look what it's attached to.
And like we as the audience know what, we may not know exact, I mean, if you've seen it before, you know the plan, but it's like, you know that this is going to happen. You want it to stop, as you said, Zeto. It's like you want to like change this movie in your head and have it just end with her happy. And as you said, Sam, like go home and be like, you were wrong, Mom. I had an amazing time, but like...
I'm going to start writing Mike Flanagan letters every day. Be like, for your Carrie adaptation, just let her have a nice time.
Let her
We've
have
got
it.
a twist for
Yeah,
you.
right.
They've done the miserable one enough times.
Yeah,
now.
let's just let
We
Carrie
have
have a win.
4 times.
Yeah.
Let's do one where
That was a dream.
Oh, there you go.
she ends up in a throuple with Tommy and Sue. She leaves her mom behind.
I like that.
And they just live happily ever after. But that bucket of blood has to drop. It just has
Yep.
to.
It's the sword of Damocles that has just been basically hanging over her head, I guess, her whole life.
Yeah.
You know, like you
Yep.
said, Zito, like it's like her fate. Like very Greek
She
tragedy.
starts the movie covered in blood and ends, you know. But yep, so she goes. They rig it so that they win.
Oh, and well,
Bitch in the hat.
and
Sorry.
she decides that she is okay with them voting for themselves for prom king and queen, and he says, "To the devil with false modesty." And
Yeah.
she says, "To the devil," and that to me is she's sort of quietly asserting it's kind of like "fuck you, mom." Like
Yeah.
Totally.
I can say to the devil, and that doesn't mean like the devil's gonna pop out and get me.
Mhm.
Like it's just a thing people say.
Mhm.
She just needed a few more like Tommies and Sues in her life earlier.
Mhm.
But no one intervened.
And so so they go up on stage. The prom king and queen are announced,
And everyone's cheering for them,
They
and everyone
are.
seems so happy. And it's like, of course, you have your nefarious group of like evil kids who are like, "Yay!"
Yeah, PJ Souls is like rubbing her hands together, like
With her
twirling her mustache.
Stupid fucking hat at prom. And they go up, and it's like they're up there forever. It's like it just feels so long.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's on purpose, right? Because we as the audience know that bucket is there, and we are waiting.
Yeah, and we're seeing Miss Collins is beaming and happy. We're seeing Sue is beaming and happy. It's a lot in like slow-mo,
And Carrie is beaming
most importantly.
Yeah.
and happy. She is up there. She can't believe it. Tommy, this isn't a surprise to him. And any day he's prom king. This
Yeah,
is
he
not...
he and Sue probably would have been
Yeah.
prom king and queen.
And this is probably the first time in Carrie's life she's in front of a bunch of people and is happy
And like well
to
received.
be in
Yes.
front of them, like, and not shrinking back. She's standing there proud, like.
Like imagine Carrie gets called on to like write something on the board in class while
Right.
people are like making rude comments.
and, like throwing shit at her.
Right, like that's all she's ever known until this moment. And she gets it, and she does get to live in it for a long time because it's a very suspended moment. But that, again, that bucket does have to fall.
And it does.
And we do see it. Well, it's so sad because Sue figures it out, kind of like sees the string and the bucket, and she's going to.
She tries to stop
She
it.
tries to stop it because she's like reaching through to try to get to Chris, but Miss Collins is like, she doesn't have a prom ticket. Get that unaccompanied woman. Where's her chaperone?
I think
Get her out of here.
She still thinks that Sue is up to no good.
I agree.
Yeah.
So she saves Sue's life
She
by
throws her out
throwing her out.
because the doors slam on Sue,
Yeah.
like right.
Because they both think they're helping Carrie.
Right as that bucket falls.
And Carrie gets covered in blood, and the bucket falls on Tommy, and it's not as clear in the movie, but in the book, he just dies.
He gets a head injury and dies.
He
right
straight up
then.
just like is dead. As soon
And
as
everyone's
the
like,
bucket
ah!
hits. Yeah. Well, yeah, PJ Souls is like, ah ha ha ha.
Well, so again, this is one where I almost wonder because, like, yes, PJ Souls is a hyena. She's laughing. And in the beginning, we see everybody else just look surprised.
Mhm.
And I do wonder if, because after a few of these moments, we see, Carrie is processing what has happened. Because it takes her a moment to even understand that she's been, like, quote unquote, pranked in this way. And then
It's just a prank, bro.
And then we see sort of a kaleidoscope effect
Yes.
of everybody is like the pointing and laughing.
As she hears her mother saying they're all going to laugh at you
Mhm.
over and over.
And we even see Miss Collins is laughing. So part of me wonders, are they all really laughing at her? I think it could go either way
Mhm.
because, like, who knows? In this universe, people are just remarkably mean. So
They are.
maybe, but part of
think
me
so.
feels like most people were probably just horrified, and that there were a few people laughing,
PJ was
and then
laughing.
Yeah, and there were probably maybe some uncomfortable laughter, you
Totally.
know. But yeah, I don't think it was everyone.
which they are
Cackling,
though
yeah.
to Carrie.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
she starts punishing everybody. And boy, does she! And we get those amazing split screens where she's
So good.
I
She's
love the split screen
so
I mean,
good.
it's so 70s, but it works so well.
I love a split screen.
Oh, it's so good, and I love the look on Sissy Spacek's face.
Chilling.
It is chilling. Those super wide eyes, and it's like she's like catatonic.
Mhm.
She's almost like possessed by like her own
Carrie has left the building.
rage. Yeah, Carrie is not here
It's
anymore.
Cassie now.
So Cassie gets Carrie's revenge, and
Yeah, her eyes are so big. She is the screen for a while at the beginning is just red.
yeah,
She's
it's all
seeing
red.
red,
Yeah.
right? And then every time she uses her power, there's like a musical sting, which I like. And so you're hearing that musical sting, and like people are running around, and she uses like a fire hose on them at first. And
Oh
then,
yeah, and in real life, that fire hose ruptured PJ Soul's eardrum.
Oh, did it
That
really?
scene where she's like falls and the fire hose is still spraying her in the face.
Yeah, she couldn't hear out of that ear for 6 months.
Yep.
That's the 70s, baby.
I was
That's
gonna say,
cinema.
I would
like,
act surprised, but it's
Can't be
like
surprised,
the
that's how it
70s.
was.
It was just torture your actors.
Yep. But yeah, it's like the slamming doors, and at one point, Miss Collins and a few students are trying to get Tommy some help. They're kind of like take him off the stage, and they're maybe trying to get to a door. And Miss Collins then gets separated and goes against a wall, and she's trying to just like talk to Carrie.
Carrie smushes her.
And Carrie, smushes her with whatever that was. Like, she crushes her to death with some hanging thing that swings down.
Interestingly enough, that character, not always named Miss Collins.
No,
is-
typically Miss Desjardins.
Yeah, Rita Desjardins.
Mm-hmm.
She sometimes survives. It's like what she does. It's funny. It's like a choose your own adventure for that character. It's like what she does in the movie determines the ending that she has. Because sometimes that character survives. Like, I can't remember it. I think the Judy Greer version lives. The one from the most recent Carrie.
I think you're right.
But it's like, because this version of Carrie sees her as laughing at her, she has to die too.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she did try to help Carrie, one of the few people in the movie who does. So it is like kind of interesting, that character and how she's like utilized and how she's punished throughout.
I agree.
Because she didn't deserve it, but I mean, no one really deserves.
No, but I also get why in her like mania Carrie would think that, because it's like she's one of the main forces that convinced Carrie to accept the invitation. So it's like, was she trying to taunt me too? Like,
Yeah,
was
no
this
one can
all
be
set up to
trusted.
She's questioning everything and everyone,
right? So
as she should.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, and like the gym is on fire, and just like everyone inside that gym dies.
Yeah.
And in the movie, that's it.
Well, so Chris and Billy,
Oh, yeah.
which is John Travolta's character, they get out. They escape. Like
First, they're watching through the window, like, oh.
because they want to. Well, because at first they want to see.
That's something you don't see every day.
They want to see the evil they did without getting caught.
Yeah.
So they run out and they're like looking in, and then they're like, oh fuck, like this is, as you said, like, this isn't how we expected this
Yeah.
fun prank to go. And then like Sue is out too, but
Mm.
everybody else who's in that gym, because she closes the door, and at some point she has this fire hose and it's spraying on electrical equipment, which is zapping people, it's setting a fire, and then there's just fire everywhere. And the only person who exits that gym is Carrie.
Yeah, and she telekinetically slams the doors behind her, leaving them all to die. And then as she's walking home, Chris and Billy are in the car. They're trying to run her over. But she, like, at the last minute, I love, how she does it. She just, like, turns and flips the car.
Ooh, I love that car effect too.
Me too. And it is satisfying that they get their comeuppance. Like,
Yeah.
that Chris and Billy get
Yeah.
killed. And then she goes to the only place that she can.
I was like, because this movie has to get more upsetting and
Oh,
more
yeah.
miserable, she has to go home to her
Oh yeah,
mom.
folks, it's not nearly over. Like, the upsetting part hasn't even happened.
I would say, because the worst is yet to come, because like Sam, our fan version of this, where she gets to go home and say you were wrong. Nope. She goes home and cries into her mother's arms saying you were right. They laughed at me.
Yep.
And her mother is already, like, muttering, like, the witch must die.
Yeah.
You cannot
I'm
suffer
like-
a witch to live.
I was also thinking of that meme of like, someone help me with my budget. My family is dying, and it's like all the things you spend money on, but one thing.
Swords.
Well, I was gonna say candles.
Yeah.
Like, ma'am, how much are we spending on candles?
I think there is a version of that word is candles. That meme.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
People love candles.
They do, and Margaret certainly does.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause Carrie goes upstairs and takes a bath. She like washes the
She
blood off of
washes
her.
off the blood, and in the beginning of the movie where she's covered in blood, it's her own blood. This time, it is not.
And she like finally, she thinks like finally gets a hug from Mother, because that's all she wants. She just wants to like be held. But as Margaret's holding her, she's also reaching for that knife,
Yeah, she gets a big old.
and she stabs her daughter as they're embracing. And Carrie like falls down the stairs, and Margaret's just like
Elated.
well, almost in like a catatonic state of her own, kind of like how Carrie was at the prom. Not to the same extent, but she's like got this beatific smile. She's feeling just like religious ecstasy as she advances on her daughter with a big old knife to kill her.
And then she uses her magic Matilda powers, and Sebastian's her mom with
Yeah.
a bunch of knives.
Yep.
Yep.
She-
In self-defense.
Oh yeah. But so Margaret is pinned in this doorway in the exact same position as the Sebastian statue, but just like she's now a pincushion.
And basically has an orgasm as she's
Yes.
dying.
She has like a religious ecstasy orgasm.
Because she died as like a martyr.
Yeah.
in
Exactly,
her
which is
head.
her dream.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right, exactly. I'm like, that was like a happy ending for
Yeah.
Margaret. Like, if only she could have taken her daughter out first.
Truly.
And then she would have had a real happy ending.
Yeah.
And then-
Yeah, poor Carrie. Because,
I
like,
know.
again, this movie could end with Carrie being like, I'm out of here. I'm going to go set off. Again, I mentioned this in the Lisa Frankenstein episode where she's like, yes, the only way out is to die. And it's like, no, you're in the 80s. You can, like, just go buy a new identity. Like, Carrie, you could go to any town in the U.S. and just start over.
She has no tools to be by herself on her own.
No,
I know,
that's true. But she could be Cassie Black.
She could
Somewhere
start
else.
over. But poor Carrie, she's just so horrified. She realizes she's killed her mom.
Yeah,
She
and maybe
cannot handle
some of
it.
the other deaths are kind of...
Maybe some of those
Who
other
knows?
the massacre that she just did.
Because she finally turns that rage, like, inward, basically.
And
and, like,
self-destructs.
Yeah, and self-destruct, so the house is now, like, sinking into the ground and crumbling.
She implodes.
And she implodes.
I'm actually tearing up.
It's
I
sad.
cry a lot in this movie.
It's so sad.
It's
And there's
so
no
sad.
relief at the end. Like, none.
No.
Well,
Because
because, yeah.
Sue is just broken.
yeah,
Oh,
we-
and her mom being like, well, the doctor says she was young enough that she'll be fine. And then she wakes up just screaming.
Right.
I'm like, in what world is
Yeah.
like 17 or 18 young enough that like she won't remember this?
So this is probably one of the most famous jump scares in movie history.
Yes.
Is Sue? I mean, we know it because we've seen it, but like, if you've never seen this before, you think, okay, we see the rubble of the White House. We see there's the for sale sign, and it says what Carrie burns in hell,
Yeah.
or something
so
like
it's
that
like a
on
for
it.
sale sign, but it's in the shape of a cross.
Yes.
And yeah, so you see for sale, and then in red, someone has written Carrie White burns in hell.
Carrie White burns in hell.
And so Sue is walking down the sidewalk
And again, we have
with
this
flowers.
we have this very sort of like filtered sort of, it's like bloom lighting.
Yes.
Where
slow-mo.
everything's very ethereal, slow lighting.
And
She walks up like an angel with her flowers.
And they filmed it backwards. She walked
Mm.
backwards that whole time, and then they played it in reverse so that it looked like she was walking forward. And the car is actually driving in reverse.
Yeah,
If
it's
you see it like on the road.
dreamlike, right? Because it's a dream.
Right? Because
But-
she's going to bring Carrie some flowers, pay her respects.
She's the only one, right? Who's like,
Because there's no flowers, there's just some Carrie White burns in hell.
but she's like
Graffiti.
presumably the only person for the rest of time who is going to
Mhm.
see Carrie as a victim.
Yeah.
The
You're right.
only person. Everyone else is already like, Carrie was a psycho who killed everybody.
Right.
And like, no one is ever gonna, I mean, this is something that we reckon with today, where it's like, oh, the school shooter, were they bullied, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
Mm.
And it's like, okay.
But this is basically a school shooting story.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it's impossible in this day and age to watch this and not see it through that lens.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have one like every other day.
Even though in 1976, I looked this up, I think there were 4 school shootings in total. And in 2023, I think there were like 340 something.
We did it! Society's
number
better
1.
now.
Trending upwards.
And we don't
It's all
even
about
have...
growth. It's a growth mindset.
And we don't even have the leaded gasoline excuse
We sure
anymore.
don't.
It's the microplastics. Couldn't be anything else. So she puts the
She
flowers
kneels down to put the flowers down.
And then we get our jump scare where the bloody hand of Carrie White shoots out of the ground and grabs her arm, and she wakes up screaming she's not okay.
With the super dramatic music playing.
Mm-hmm.
As her mom's just like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
And we
What
end
the doctor said.
we end on trauma.
Yeah.
That's how it ends.
Roll credits.
Sue is traumatized. Her boyfriend, all of her friends.
She's like the sole survivor of
Yes.
her entire like graduating class.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's the final girl.
She is. That's true.
Yeah.
Her destroying that room is the catharsis. Like it symbolizes the destruction that she wants, the revenge that she wants to get.
Mm-hmm. When I think of revenge movies, though, I normally think of it being really satisfying.
Yeah.
This one is like completely lacks any sort of satisfaction. It just is sad and then gets sadder and continues to be sad.
That's true.
Normally when I think of a revenge movie, I think of like The End of Teeth or like
Death Proof.
Death Proof, exactly.
Mm.
And this is just a different flavor of revenge movie.
Also, shout out to Tabitha King, Stephen King's wife, because famously Stephen King had thrown the manuscript for Carrie in the trash and was not going to submit it to publishers. And Tabitha found it in the trash and convinced him that it was worth editing and submitting.
That's really special.
And it ended up being his first novel. Like this was what put him on the map.
Wow.
So Tabitha, you're a real one. Like
thanks, Tabitha.
yeah. So I just thought that was. Oh, also Piper Laurie, who played the mom, came out of retirement for this film. She was big in the 50s, had retired, and I guess Brian De Palma wore her down. He was like, "No, you're Margaret, and you need to do this."
And she showed up again later in The Faculty.
That's
Check
right.
out our episode on
That's
The
exactly
Faculty.
right. Because once she came out of retirement, this was 76. And then The Faculty was what, 1998 or something? So she kept working for a long time. But she really had a false start with that retirement.
I also read that she thought it was a comedy based on the script and kept playing it like a comedy, and they had to be like, girl,
it's not.
That's not what we're doing here.
Shall we discuss what we loathe? I loathe the tuxedo scene and the stupid speed up effect. I hate it so much because it could so easily just be taken out.
Yeah.
You could even have them bantering, kind of intercutting, the boys getting ready as a group versus Carrie trying to get ready on her own. I don't even hate the concept of the sequence. I just hate that effect. And everything else that's dated works for me as a time capsule. And that just makes me cringe, and I hate it.
I think that's a fair loathe.
I have a loathe as well. The bitch in the hat getting her hair done under the hairdryer with the hat on top. That's not the part I loathe. I loathe that later we see her at school with her hair in 2 braids and the hat on. So I'm like, no.
Oh.
Did you just get your hair did? Mm-hmm.
Whoa.
That irritated me.
Ruins movie. Bad
Yeah.
movie.
Ruined. Yep. It's all terrible. Burn it down. But no. Love the movie, but I loathed that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a loathe. I don't think it's a perfect movie. I think there are things that could have been changed, but I think even the hat shit is funny because this movie's heartbreaking, it's serious, it's beautiful, but it also falls into camp in certain moments.
That's true.
And so anything that I would loathe, I think just goes into that camp bucket, and I'm just like, go off, sis. Go off, sissy. And that's on period.
Oh, she did it.
I don't know if I loathe anything either. I mean, I would never say this is one of my favorite movies, but it's a great movie. It's evocative. It's interesting. I mean, maybe just not to be a zoomer, which I'm not, but I don't know, some of the, like, gratuitous female nudity is, like, a little bit, like, I get it, it's the 70s, and it's about, you know, girls becoming women and all that, but, I don't know, I feel like there's so much that this movie can say about growing up and expressing yourself, and then it's just sort of like, 70s, throw in some tits so we get some, you know, money to make this movie. But I don't loathe it. I like tits as much as anybody. So I'm fine with it. It's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like, when I think of the things in this movie that don't really work for me, like maybe some of that nudity, I'm like, why is this here?
Yeah, I feel really sensitive to the male gaze and nudity in horror specifically, which I think is a big reason why when I was young and started watching it, I backed away from the genre. The nudity in this movie feels subversive to me. It feels almost like they're using it as a way into the male gaze, like that first locker room scene, and then really quickly we're like, you thought, like, this isn't your fantasy, the pack of hyenas again.
Yeah.
And I can't remember any other nudity, but I also get that.
She's
feeling.
naked later when she's showering
like bathing.
again.
Yeah,
But
that's
I don't
fair.
know. And
But
then
that
she
didn't
puts on a
bother me,
robe.
though.
To me,
The later one, it like didn't. But I kind of, that's how I took it, Zeto, like the nudity at the beginning.
Yeah, but I did feel uncomfortable watching it because
Yeah.
I'm like, high schoolers,
Right.
lots of naked girls. It does, like, evoke weirdness.
Yeah, maybe,
I agree.
but it just feels really different, like, you know, because The Substance came out this year, and that just feels like, and we being Sam, Brett, and I just recently rewatched Revenge, which is Coralie Fargeat's other movie, which is another one that features a lot of, like, nudity, male gaze type stuff that's done on purpose. Like, to me, it doesn't feel subversive to me. It just feels like part of that. It's like, this is a movie about women, kind of from the viewpoint of, like, a male director with a male cinematographer from a male author. And that doesn't mean that it's, like, problematic, but it's just something I notice about this movie. It just doesn't feel very, like, I don't know, real to me in that way.
I didn't see anything other than what, like, not the typical body, but, like, in-shape bodies. Like, you didn't see a range of different bodies. You saw naked women with nice tits.
Well, it's the 70s, too, so everyone's really thin.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I mean, like, even in the source material, both Carrie and her mom are supposed to be heavier.
Yes.
And they were changed for basically every movie
Yes.
version of this. Becomes sort of, like, lithe and, like, I don't know.
The real question, is it gay?
I think it has its moments, for sure.
I
PJ
agree.
Soul's gay hat.
And I won't give you a single reason why.
And I'll let you figure out
You
why I think
decide.
that.
No, I think anything that has camp is gay. Like, camp is
Yes,
gay. Yeah. And Margaret White kind of feels like if she wasn't terrible, she would be a gay icon. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
She's giving it that woman who's like from Wife Swap, who's like, she's not a Christian!
Yes. Yes.
My favorite video.
Yeah. I also feel like any outsider movie can be queer-coded in a way.
Totally.
If Carrie White was a TikTok teen, her mom would go, like, viral.
Yes. For being crazy.
For
Also,
sure.
I feel like Miss Collins isn't necessarily
She's gay.
lesbian coded, but yeah, like, I see it that way. So I actually think this has, while not having like explicitly queer characters or moments, I do feel a pretty good amount of ambient gayness.
I think
I agree.
PJ Souls and Chris are gay together, too.
Totally.
Because while they both have dudes, they're just manipulating them to get what they want.
That's true.
Or, like, staging it.
Yeah, because I don't buy any of Chris's like attraction to John Travolta.
Means to an end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would give it 2 buckets of blood out of 5. 2.5. I amend it. But half a bucket. The rest are filled with spackle.
I mean, we do have a scene in this where it's, like, a bunch of naked women in a high school locker room giggling and, like, pushing each other and basically doing, like, pillow fight equivalent.
Yeah.
Which is definitely exactly how it was in the high school locker room.
And always has been.
Oh, can I tell you guys something funny? So when I was in middle school, I think? Yeah, middle school, in gym, I got detention once because me and someone y'all know, you can bleep this, we locked, you can also bleep this, in a locker. during gym. We locked her in the locker. First of all, I told her, you won't fit in that locker. Like, I didn't shove her in. I just said,
Bet you can't fit in the locker.
I bet you can't fit in that locker. And she goes, I can. She went in, and then I closed it and locked it behind her. And then the PE teacher came in, because I guess 3 kids were missing from class, saw us, and then gave all of us detentions for cutting PE. But
wow.
It's okay, because I'm friends now with the person who I locked in that locker. So I did not get set on fire or smushed.
I, in 7th grade, was locked in a locker by...
Not me.
But it was kind of near the end of the year. I already wasn't thrilled with this group of friends, but they were the only friends I really had. But they locked me in the locker, and I literally cut them off and didn't speak to them again for the rest of the year.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, no, you're not going to treat me that way. And like, I'm not going to pretend like we're okay.
Wow.
You learned that lesson a lot younger than most people.
I did.
For real.
And I have continued that. Like, there is... I will, not to say that I won't take some abuse or like have some unfortunate coping strategies, but there reaches a certain point where someone will reach out to me and I'm like, I'm not interested in speaking to you ever again.
Well, I am making note to not trick you into going into a locker and locking you in.
Yeah, tread lightly, people.
Well, but we're like actual friends, so I could probably even get past that. Like, I already was like mad at these guys.
Okay, get a locker.
All right.
Where can we find a locker?
Deleting my note. Yeah, I think this is moderately. I don't know. I think it's moderately gay. Or lesbian. I will give it. I don't know. A solid 2.5 out of 5. Tampons.
Okay.
I'm just stuck on the hat. Yeah, I think it's got some gayness in there. So
Hat for
moderately
gay.
gay. Hat for gay.
Yeah, I'll give it 2 out of 5 somethings.
Yeah.
2 out of 5 what?
2 out of 5 buckets.
Oh, there you go. All right, well, I guess that about does it for this week's episode of Queer and Loathing.
Where can people find us? Well,
do you know?
no,
Queer
don't-
and Loathing Pod on Instagram, and we're also now posting on YouTube.
Ooh, what do you mean we?
We
It's pretty presumptive.
And I hope to see you again very soon.
bring your spatula.
No, just kidding. Honestly, this was so much pressure. I will not be back for many months. Okay, thank you.
I will be recovering. This will be discussed in therapy.
Correct.
Yeah,
But you can also email us at queerandloathingpod@gmail.com.
Show off.
That's right.
Yeah, tell your friends. Share our pod and go rub your period blood on someone wearing a white shirt.
Uh-oh. Zeto's wearing a white shirt.
Uh-oh.
She's like, I did it on accident.
All right. Well, Zeto, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for
Zeto.
having
It's
me.
a pleasure. Until next time,
I'm queer.
I'm Loathing.
I'm Samantha.
And I'm Zeto.
Yay!